All right. So we'll start off with a nice and easy one. And it's just basically, can you give us sort of an intro to who you are and the sort of things that you like to create?
So my name's Carolyn. By day, I'm a manager of an admin department, and by night, I play with a lot of yarn. I like to make things that make me feel some kind of happy feeling. When I first started doing crafting, mostly with yarn, it's like crochet and knitting, I do both. It was to just take up the time during the day. But when I thought back more on what I wanted to make, I was making things that I thought I should make. And instead, I now make things that I want for me, rather than like, when you look at online for things to make, there's always, oh, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. I don't listen to any of that. I just kind of make things that make me feel happy.
Can you tell us what inspired your entry and what you hope a person will get from seeing it?
When I made the ghost, it was because Halloween was coming up, and obviously we had the prompt for the words have escaped me now for the challenge. So I'd already seen a pattern for the ghost before the topic of the challenge came up, and obviously with it being Halloween coming up, I've always got in my mind I want to make something for Halloween. So the inspiration behind it was purely just, it's Halloween and I love spooky stuff. I'm a very sort of spooky person in that respect. Like, I love Halloween and I love everything to do with the season as well. And as far as what I hope someone will take away from it, is more that they would see it and think, oh, that's cute. I like making things for the serotonin and the dopamine, rather than for political means. Personally, I'm more of a sort of a happiness chaser in that respect.
Right. Of all the things that you have created, what are you most proud of?
I think it depends on the day. If you ask me that question, it depends on the day of what I'm proud of, whether it's something that took a long time to make or that I had to remake several times, because I don't like getting things wrong. I get quite frustrated if I don't get something right the first time. So I suppose at the moment, the thing I'm most proud of is, I actually don't know. The thing is, I make an awful lot of stuff very often. Like, I like making lots of little things rather than big things that take a long time. But I suppose my favourite thing that I've made recently is a really big shawl that's in a rainbow coloured yarn, and it's really comfy and cosy, and it's great when it's a bit chilly in the evenings just to kind of snuggle up under. But yeah, I'd say at the moment that's my favourite thing that I've made.
All right. So that's what I like about a lot of what you make as well, is like you've got something tangible, like, because that's one of the things with stuff that most I do, it's either digital or it's, ephemeral in some way. Actually having something you've made is such an awesome thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Trouble is, it takes up a lot of room in my house.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that as well. Yeah. Okay. Who inspires you creatively?
Don't know if the mic picked that up, but the fireworks are going off outside. Sorry. It depends on what I've seen as to who's inspired me, because sometimes there'll be absolutely nothing has kind of inspired me. I'll just go, oh, that's a good idea, or something to make, or a person might send me something, or like my friend Seth, she's very good at finding cute things to send me. Like, half the time if I make something cute, it's because she's seen it and gone, you should make this, and then I agree with her and I make it. But it's there isn't sort of any one person that inspires me. I get inspiration from random places at random times, because I don't look for inspiration, because I find that if I look for inspiration, I will end up making something that I'm not happy with or that feels forced. I wait for it to come to me rather than looking for it, so it could come from anywhere or anyone.
I think that's a very healthy answer as well, if you know what I mean. I think that ability to allow inspiration in as opposed to seeking it out, kind of thing. That's a healthy attitude, I think, to have.
I think it's the luxury of making stuff as a hobby rather than it being a way that I earn my money and have to keep a roof over my head. I have the luxury of it's just a pastime and there's no stakes on what I do to be anything other than just the thing that I've made.
What role does creativity play in your life?
It's a means of escape. Mostly, I think it keeps me busy, or keeps my hands busy of an evening. I'm a very fidgety person, so I like to keep my hands busy. If I'm not doing something with my hands, I'll have a film on and then end up scrolling through TikTok for an hour and a half, whilst not actually watching the film that I've put on or things like that.
So kind of expanding on that then. So obviously creativity always plays an important part, and I think in most people's lives in some form or another, it has some role it performs as well as the act of creation itself. But as I say, expanding on that, why do you think creativity is important to society at large?
So I think that it's important to society because it gives people an outlet in a way that they might not have in their ordinary everyday life. Not necessarily with what I do, but I quite enjoy art in its many forms, and it's a powerful way of sending a message to a wide range of people in a way that's easily digestible, depending on what the artwork is itself. And if we didn't have the creative industry, we wouldn't have a lot of things that people enjoy today, like films and TV, art, music. People take them for granted, I think, but if we didn't have those creative people making them, we wouldn't have those things that the non-creative people, as it were, enjoy. And it can be a very good way for if people have mental health issues, of working through those issues in a way that they are more comfortable with. Not everyone likes talking or, having sort of a talking therapy or whatever it might be. Sometimes art is the best way of them expressing themselves and working through those issues if they've got issues, or even just to understand how they feel inside, because sometimes they might not understand it, and being creative and having that creative outlet helps them to work through it and understand things a bit better.
This one's always a good one. This one's always gets a good answer, I think. What is the best piece of advice you have heard about art and creativity?
Do it anyway. Even if you think you're going to fail, try it, and you never know what you might get from it. Even if the thing you've done doesn't work, you may have learned something, or actually end up making something that is good, even though it felt like it wasn't at the beginning. Like, don't worry about messing up, because it will always have some kind of benefit to you.
And that's a really, really good piece of advice as well. I think if you produce something and it doesn't hit the heights you were looking for, chances are there's still a value in it, either from the process, like you say, and the learning, or you might get to the end and go, well, all right, it's not what I was aiming for, but it's given me a different idea, or it's fed the creativity of the next project and stuff. So yeah, 100%, really like that. Do you have a creative philosophy?
Do it anyway. Along the same lines as the advice, just do it anyway. If you find something enjoyable, do it whenever you can. To that end, I always take my knitting or crochet with me to work. So when I've got a spare 5 minutes, I just have a little, just do a bit more on whatever I'm working on.
This one's an interesting one quite often as well. Are there any subjects you try to avoid in your art and your creativity?
I don't purposefully avoid anything, but I tend to gravitate more towards things that I find enjoyable. As a consumer of art, I really enjoy heavily political things that have a strong message, especially when it's to do with like diversity and inclusion and that sort of thing. Like I'm quite passionate about that area of things. While I don't necessarily create art that does that, I enjoy consuming it, but I don't avoid doing it. I just tend to gravitate more towards like the serotonin side of art for myself, but I wouldn't be against doing anything more outspoken or opinionated, if that makes sense. I just don't tend to purposefully go in that direction.
Okay, what are you working on right now?
At the moment, unfortunately, is not within arm's reach. I can't show you, but I'm working on a cardigan. It's purple and pink striped. Again, you probably will have seen a post. I post most things that I'm working on, either when I'm working on them or when I'm finished. But I'm working on a cardigan at the moment, which I think is going to be a bit of a challenge because I usually get bored when I'm about sort of waist level when it comes to cardigans, but I want a long cardigan. So the challenge is going to be keeping on going with it so that it gets to the length that I originally wanted it to be. But I am determined to actually finish this one properly this time instead of making a short cardigan.
I have to admit, sometimes when I see you when you're creating these things, I'm like, it's something I could see myself getting interested in, because I love that idea of being like, I started with some components and I now have an article of clothing that didn't exist before. But I've already got.
It's worth having a go. Well, I mean, to that end, what I did recently in the last couple of months is I bought a load of knitting supplies and crochet bits and bobs, and I took them to work because we have the department that I'm in. Some people spend quite a long time during the day waiting for work to come to them, and while they're waiting, they'll try and keep themselves busy, but it can be difficult to do that in a way that you can just drop it and pick up whatever comes your way. It's a call center type environment. But I thought, well, if I put this here, it's the kind of thing, if you're knitting or crocheting, you can just put it down and then pick it up again later. And quite a few people have started crocheting and knitting because of the things that I brought in. So I would say give it a go. If you end up buying bits and not liking it, you can always donate them to a charity, or to a charity shop or something, or give them to someone else that wants to give them a go. But unless you try, you never know whether you'd be good at it or whether you would enjoy it or not.
That's very true. And here you go, complete novice question. What is the difference between knitting and crochet?
So knitting is 2 sticks and you're creating loops to make like the next row of the material, and crochet is with one single hook, and it's basically creating a series of knots that join together to make a piece of material.
Awesome. So that straight away, I've learned something today that I didn't know when I woke up this morning. What else have we got? We've got, what is something you would like to try creatively that you haven't tried yet?
I really want to try weaving, like big loom weaving, like the absolutely massive ones that you see with the shuttles that go back and forth. But the reason I haven't tried it is because A, it's very expensive, and B, if I don't like it, I've wasted a lot of money. It's not a hobby that you can go into lightly.
All right. What is one thing you would change to improve creativity in the UK?
More funding for the arts for people who might not be able to afford to access it otherwise. When I was growing up, I was in a youth theatre group in the Mid Wales town where I grew up. It's called Mid Powys Youth Theatre, and it was absolutely instrumental in me becoming who I am today. It was a really good creative outlet that helped me to do things that I didn't think I would do otherwise. I always thought that I was a very nervous person, but I found that through acting I gained a lot of confidence. I still get nervous like doing public speaking and things like that. I can't give a presentation at work to save my life, but thankfully I don't have to in my role. But when I'm acting and I'm a character and I'm a different person, I absolutely love it. I really thrive in it. It actually informed what I did later in my life because my degree was in drama and theatre studies. So even though I've not actually done anything with my degree since I got it 10 years ago, I going to that youth theatre when I was a lot younger informed my choices as I grew up through my life further, and to what degree I did ultimately. And if it wasn't for public funding and that kind of thing, we wouldn't have been able to have that youth theatre. It's still going now, and I think some of the people who were there as members when I was there are now the teachers and the instructors, alongside people that were there when I was that were teaching when I was attending as a member. And it's absolutely fantastic to see that it's still going and that it's still thriving. But there are many others that have lost their funding or what have you. So that's one thing I would change, is put more money into that side of things to help people in, like, a lot of the kids that were there wouldn't have been able to afford to go to drama school or have expensive acting lessons or anything like that, but we were able to experience it because of the funding that was there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer, and I think you've tapped into something really important there as well. I think that since the dawn of society, people have been creating things and dancing and making music and painting walls, and and there's a reason, because it's such a fundamental aspect of humanity, and we certainly don't treat it as such sometimes, I think, in terms of the governments anyway. If you could create something for, say, like a celebrity or somebody that's very dear to you, who would you pick? Who would you create something for?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I have thought in the past about making things and sending them to people that are fairly well known. I don't know if it would be appreciated, if it would be something that they would want or that they would like. I tend not to make things for people unless they've asked me for them specifically. So I suppose if there was a famous person I came across and they were like, oh, I'd really like a massive scarf that looks kind of like this and has this kind of theme to it, then I would probably potentially make it and try and send it to them if they've got a PO box or what have you. But I'm very conscious of, when it comes to things that are knitted and crocheted, like either a wearable item or a blanket, it's a very personal thing. Once you've received it, if you don't use it, then does that mean that you didn't like the thing? Or, I always worry that if I give someone something unprompted, that they won't like it, and that it will be a burden on them and take up space in their life. And they're like, oh, bloody Carolyn, she sent me this thing and I don't like it. So I don't think I would, unless someone said to me, I would like this thing, I wouldn't make it and send it to them, just because I wouldn't want to, even on a tiny level, burden them with something they don't want.
We both do a bit of YouTube. How do you find putting yourself out there on YouTube? As a creative person, there is a vulnerability, in the very nature of what we do when we put ourselves out there. And how have you found that sort of making yourself vulnerable and putting yourself out there on YouTube?
I find YouTube, I don't have that many consistent watches on my videos. Almost all of them are 100 views or less, mostly towards the less side. And I make the videos for myself more than anything. I have made videos for TikTok before, and I find that on TikTok, if your post gets into the wrong for you page and then ends up in the side where people take the piss and they're mean for no reason and that sort of thing, it can be quite demoralizing. There was a video that I put up probably about 2 years ago, and I got a lot of negative comments. Obviously, as you can tell, because you can see me on video, I'm a larger person, and most of them were quite negative about my size and how I looked, and it's really put me off wanting to put up videos and things. When I was doing YouTube videos, for a few of them, I decided not to have myself in the video at all and just have my voice and because I have a journal or several journals now, I've got about 4 of them, where I kind of document all the things that I make, so that I've got a record of what I've made, even if I don't have the thing anymore. And I thought, well, actually, I can put myself in the videos because I don't get that many viewers, so I'm not going to get that many comments saying horrible things. So I felt a bit more comfortable. It's like the anonymity of being completely invisible to most people in society. But in general, I find it difficult to put myself out there as me because I worry what other people think of me when they look at me. And that, I think, that probably comes from years of being bullied as a child, unfortunately. But I want to be more confident with it, and I want to care less. So I keep doing it to try and make myself feel more comfortable.
Totally with you there in terms of the vulnerability. And I have heard TikTok can be especially toxic.
Oh, it's awful. The thing is, if you get on a nice side of TikTok, it's absolutely lovely. Like, there was one video probably about 4 or 5 months ago. I'd sewn a jumpsuit because I do sewing as well. I mostly do knitting and crochet, but I do try and do sewing as well. And I'd sewed myself a jumpsuit, and I just took a video of me wearing it. I sort of did a spin, as it were, and it took me 3 days to actually post it because I was so worried about what comments I would get. And literally, there've been no negative comments because it stayed on the nice, friendly side, but it also, in the same vein, could have gone completely the opposite direction.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a little taster of that on YouTube, but not so much. I did a YouTube short. Well, what I've since learned is that you only have to whisper the word like turf and they just appear. And I got loads of abuse on that, and I had to turn the comments off in the end. We're going to move into the quick fire round. So the first one is the beach or woods?
Woods every time.
Okay. Horror or comedy?
Comedy usually, but I also love horror. I'm not a big fan of either this or that because I see merit in both with a lot of things. It can be difficult for me to choose.
But yeah, no, that's and horror comedy does exist after all as well. So
I believe it's called horromedy.
It's rare to find a good one. I still find horror comedy. I'm trying to think what the last one I saw. I mean, Tucker and Dale still stands for me as like one of the best horror comedy out there, but it's a fine art to get that balance right, I think. Yeah, or Dead Snow, that was quite good. Anyway, I'm derailing us again. Sci-fi or fantasy?
That's I love them both too much to say. I can't give an answer. I love them both equally.
How about Star Wars or Lord of the Rings?
Well, Lord of the Rings. I'm more of a Trekkie than a Warsy.
Oh, okay. So then it's Star Trek or Lord of the Rings?
Star Trek.
There's a lot more content over there as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
And Amazon haven't bought all the rights for Star Trek, so you're kind of safe.
Yeah. Although I'm saying that, and I'm literally dressed as a hobbit at the moment because it's Halloween.
Of course. Yeah, books or audiobooks?
Audiobooks. If I didn't make stuff, I would absolutely read a physical book. I mean, I buy books, I just don't read them. There are stacks of books around my living room that I've bought, and I know I won't read, but I want to own the books.
The best ice cream flavour is?
Mint choc chip.
Interesting. I think I've had a couple of those now. No love for rum and raisin, you know. But...
Oh God, no! Cannot stand it. I don't like puddings with alcohol in more alcohol flavours. I don't know why. No, it's just not for me. It puts me off instantly.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Where can people find you and your creations? And is there anything you want to signpost before we sign off?
So if you want to find me anywhere on social media, I don't use Twitter at all, but anywhere else, look for Cedig Crafts. It's spelled with a C, not a K. If anyone is able to and would like to donate, on Saturday the 2nd of November I'll be shaving all my hair off, and I'm doing it to raise money for Macmillan. The hair I will be sending off to Little Princess Trust, which is a charity that makes wigs for children and young people who have lost their hair due to illness or disease, usually through cancer and chemotherapy. And then I'll also be making a personal donation next month to them, because while they need donations of hair, they also need the money to pay people to make the wigs with the hair that they get. So if you're able to and you would like to donate, I will send a link over to you to put somewhere or a QR code of some sort. But yeah, that'll be happening on Saturday regardless.
Brilliant. Okay, well look, thank you so much for your time. It's been really interesting and a really good conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Your entry was fantastic, and I'll probably put it at the end of the video as well. Again, everybody in the group, when they saw it, just went, oh well, that's Halloween one. And it really was fantastic.
Well, thank you for having me, and I honestly didn't think I would win, but I was very happy to see that I did.
Ta-ta.
Bye.
Bye-bye.